which paid dividends once he got to the finals.
All right, you got some NBA Summer League here. Nets, Wizards, Brooklyn's. Ahmed Hill coming out of nowhere with the block.
Oh, I like this little chase down into the first row of the crowd.
Get that weak stuff out of here.
Summer League, a little of the luster removed from it thanks to Zion being out for the summer, but some good games.
More Summer League here. Pellies and Hawks. New Orleans rookie Jackson Hayes rolling to the basket. Dunks all over this defender here.
I try to tell these guys, you can't take those charges, man.
Oh, you
guys are way too athletic. Due to put a knee up in your chin, Nick.
I'm so glad you're coming around with me on these weak side charges being weak plays. Jackson Hayes, biggest hands in the NBA. The rookie out of Texas, bigger than Kawhi Leonard's.
Is that official or that's just your opinion?
No, it's official.
We covered this in the draft. He was my sleeper in the draft.
Busy days ahead for the Oklahoma City Thunder. They got the largest draft package ever for a player when they traded Paul George to team up with Kawhi Leonard. But now Russell Westbrook reportedly wants a fresh start with a different team and is welcoming the idea of being traded. Might not be easy to move. He's got 4 years and $171 million left on his contract. Nick, should the Thunder actually try to trade Russ?
Absolutely. If he wants to be traded, this is a situation where an organization owes it to the player to do what he requests. He could have, the Thunder would have been in fold the franchise mode if after Kevin Durant left, Russ had not signed that extension. The Thunder would have been in no man's land for the now and the future if Russ didn't, after they traded for Paul George, do everything he could to make Paul George feel welcome, feel like it could be his team, and to convince him to sign that extension at a party that I believe was at Russ's house on the first day of free agency last year. And I know Paul George is gone now, but the reason the Thunder have a potential future is because of what they're going to get back for Paul George instead of him just walking out the door in free agency as he could have. He is the best and most important player in the history of their franchise. I understand KD won an MVP there, but Russ then did as well, and Russ stayed. They owe it to Russ, now that they have pivoted to a rebuild, to not competing in the last few years of his prime, to move him and to move him to a destination of his choosing as long as that team wants him, because he has been so good to that franchise. He has kept that franchise afloat, and that franchise, he has continually tried to get people to come to OKC and been successful at times, and now they pivoted against his wishes when they didn't have to, when they had Paul George under contract for another 2 or maybe 3 seasons. So yes, if he wants to be traded, they owe it to him.
Yeah, they didn't need to talk to Russ to ask him, oh, do you want to stay here and play with a bunch of young players, not make the playoffs? Even though he would much rather lose in the first round the way they have been doing. But they tried to trade him to Toronto. They understand Russell Westbrook better than anyone else. You can't put Russ in the locker room with a bunch of young players. No, he doesn't have that type of personality. He's not going to be able to continue to lead this organization in good faith. They got to trade him. You got to trade him before training camp. There's no need to even try to move into the future, try to set a plan of action for these younger players, knowing that ultimately you're going to probably move Russ before the trade deadline. So, yes, the organization. I'm not as far as Nick, they owe it to him. Russ is getting paid. That's also, he signed that deal because it was the max deal that he could get. No other team could pay him more. So I'm going to give him credit for opting into the deal just like Damian Lillard. So there's a little business on that side that benefited Russ also. But after back-to-back-to-back triple-doubles, they got to move off of Russ and give him a chance to be able to lead another franchise.
At this point, there's no way it seems like they would get what they got for Paul George, trading someone like Russell Westbrook, even though he is only 30 years old. But where should he want to go play? I know you mentioned he should be able to dictate at least an idea of where he wants. What team would you like to see him play for?
Well, so there's a lot of talk about he and Miami, and I don't know if he and Jimmy Butler fit, but that would be an interesting team. It would certainly be a playoff team. I think it's a team that could get out of the first round in the East. Miami could trade Dragic and Winslow and make the money work. The problem is Miami doesn't have any picks to include. Those picks actually Oklahoma City already has, and because Oklahoma City has those Miami picks, they are de-incentivized to make Miami better. They want Miami to be as bad as possible because they control Miami's draft. Some people have mentioned the Bulls. I think the Bulls are an interesting possibility. But C, I'm going to say a team nobody's talked about that I think works for all parties, and that's the San Antonio Spurs. The Thunder are not trying to compete. They are trying to get under the tax and get off money. DeMar DeRozan only has 1 year left on his deal, and then he can opt out, and he will because next year's free agent crop is so weak. If the Spurs sent them DeRozan plus maybe Lonnie Walker plus the kid White, who we saw in the playoffs play well, maybe both of those or even just one of those guys, I think the Thunder could do it because they just want to get off Russ's money. And if Russ is going to have any chance at evolving his game, doing it in that incubator in San Antonio with a coach who has tremendous respect for Russ in Greg Popovich, I think that would be a great fit. And if the Spurs are looking up and down the West right now and saying there are 7 teams clearly better than us, we need to make some type of change, this could be a shock to that system. So nobody's talking about the Spurs. Russ has played in Oklahoma City, so it's not like he needs the major market. San Antonio, to me, is a really interesting option.
Yes. Popovich, he's been complimentary of Russ. Yes, he was on Team USA. But I learned this from Bill Belichick. When he plays against great players, he's always complimentary, and sometimes he'll give you some insight that you hadn't even looked at it. But if that player was available, Bill Belichick still don't want him on his team. Now, he might be complimentary of him. You know, I admire him from a distance, but he can't play in my system because I want guys to be able to share the ball. What about the workload management and how they're going to run the locker room? Russ is not going to agree to that. So when I'm complimentary of someone, that means, oh, man, I like this guy, but I might not want him on the show. All right? These are different things when you compliment people from a distance. No, I don't see him. He's not the type of player that plays in San Antonio. Last year, Russ joined a list that you don't want to be on. 6 players in NBA history that have shot over 400 threes and made less than 30% of them. Where does that fit into what Popovich is doing? Pop only wants to coach a few more years. Man, Russ will take him to an early grave with the way he plays basketball.
But, CC, the same way players go to New England and they change to be able to fit into Belichick's system because they know he's a great coach and he knows how to win. You don't think a guy like Russ, who's still relatively young, who hasn't tasted much winning there in Oklahoma City, could go there under the guise of, I'm going to help take you to this next level? Nope.
I don't believe Russ thinks there's a coach can take him to the next level. That was one of the problems in OKC. What was the coaching staff telling Russ? How his game was going to evolve? What has his game evolved into? He's less efficient than he was 3 years ago. Now, he put together 3 record-breaking seasons, but the efficiency from the point guard, how he's going to play, what about his temperament? Those things, as he has approached 30 and gotten older, they have not changed.
But he's also never had a great NBA coach. Scott Brooks is a league average coach at best. Billy Donovan's a great college coach, has not proven to be a great NBA coach. Popovich might be the best coach ever. Also, the Spurs have enough other three-point shooting that they traded for DeRozan knowing he's a mid-range guy. Now, last year, Russ couldn't hit the mid-range shot. Last year, he couldn't hit free throws either. But previously in his career, that little elbow jumper, he was very good at. He gets to the rim. And here's the last thing I'll say about the Spurs, because you mentioned that Pop C doesn't want to coach that much longer. Pop knows that next year there's no free agents. He also knows that in order to get in the game in the Western Conference, you can't have LaMarcus Aldridge as your best player, your #1 option. He wants to have any chance at reinventing the Spurs one last time, there's not going to be a player of Russ's caliber available.
Good and great coaches do not want to coach all types of players. Did we not see the example of Kyrie Irving? Is he not a great player?
He's a great player.
Is Brad Stevens, what kind of coach is he?
I think he's a great coach.
Okay, well, how did that work out?
That one didn't work out.
Okay, it's a great example. His style does not fit the style of the coach. The coach's style is far more important than the player.
All right, let's break. Welcome back to First Things First. We'll get to Russell Westbrook in a second, but first, Vladdy Guerrero Jr. didn't win the Derby, but he came awfully close. 91 total long balls last night.
See, only I could bet a substantial amount of money on a guy who hits 91 home runs in a derby and doesn't win. I feel like I should get my money refunded or something. That's ridiculous. He set the record by 1,000, and he doesn't win the derby. Your doofus won it.
Also, I know some people that can get you some help with that problem. You betting on the home run derby, bro?
What else was there to bet on last night? Tell me a better betting option. Give me another gambling option.
What about just keep your money?
Here you go. All right, the guy that did win, Mets Pete Alonso defeating Guerrero in the final round to cap the home run derby title. He hit a total of 57 home runs.
This might have been the best moment for the New York Mets since Matt Harvey demanded to go back out there against the Royals in the World Series. It's been nothing but bad headlines for the Mets. Pete Alonso delivers for him.
He really did. I had some concerns about the pitcher. Man, it seemed like he was throwing a little sidearm, little sinkers and everything. So the first 2 rounds, we didn't see him max out his ability. I think he was a little energy conservation at the time.